This is a Spiderfoot reconnaissance tool that looked at DominionVoting.com network that was analyzed on November 3rd. And basically this shows vulnerabilities. It shows volumetric internet traffic, the raw data. It shows all of the web server's physical coordinates, all the vulnerabilities that are associated with the server. But basically, it does show that this was connected to the internet on voting day, and the volume of traffic was significant, and the vulnerabilities there are plenty of vulnerabilities that hackers could penetrate this system.
Can you tell if some of those communications went outside the United States?
We did observe packet traffic that were going from the U.S. Now, we don't know if it was specifically Dominion traffic going, but to a server in Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt, Germany.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
And who has it?
Could Colonel Waldron, could you just take a moment and explain packet traffic, because there's probably a lot of folks who are not sure what that is.
So it's bits of information that are sent over the internet from internet protocol from one point to another.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's in Frankfurt, Germany that would be of interest?
Well, we looked prior to the election. One of our white hat hackers, and found that there was traffic in a Seidel server. Seidel is one of the companies, and I can show you we mentioned before the interconnectedness. Not that one. The interconnectedness of these companies. So this is sort of a historical link to all the voting companies, and we got Smartmatic in the middle. It's a licensor to Dominion Voting Systems. Seidel runs election night reporting through SOE software and Clarity Elections over here. And Clarity Elections is if you click up on a lot of the county and Secretary of State voting systems, it'll pop up as property of Clarity Elections. So it doesn't really belong to the counties. It doesn't really belong to you. It really belongs to Clarity Elections.
I mean, just to make it simple, a Dominion machine that I go in and vote, it is susceptible to easily having that vote changed from the outside, or by them in particular.
By an authorized user or an unauthorized user.
By an authorized or unauthorized user?
Correct.
As well?
A hacker.
A hacker. So my vote is only as good as the integrity of Dominion and all the hackers that exist that can get into the Dominion machine.
Your vote is not as secure as your Venmo account.
Pardon me? Say that one more time.
Your vote is not as secure as your Venmo account.
Can you think of any reason why anyone would hire them to count votes in the United States?
I could postulate a lot of...
Are any of them good reasons?
They have a strong lobby. They work with the government. They work with state government agencies, and they've got the infrastructure to sell their services.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of Alternative News. And we were just listening to them describe how some of the machines were connected to the intranet during the election, and how they were sending data overseas. And in a little while we're going to hear an interview by Lieutenant General McInerney describing a raid in Germany that took place in Frankfurt, Germany, where they raided, and it was said that that's where they were receiving or communicating with the election machines here in the U.S. and influencing them. So we'll hear him describe that in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to show you guys this right here. Keshavarzh Nia holds a PhD degree in Management of Engineering and Technology from Cal Southern University, and other advanced degrees from George Mason and George Washington universities. Another extraordinary assertion from the Georgia court filing is that of a former electronic intelligence analyst under U.S. Army's 305th Military Intelligence Battalion, aka the Kraken, that the Dominion software was accessed by agents acting on behalf of China and Iran in order to monitor and manipulate elections, including the most recent U.S. general election in 2020. So, there's more information. Let me just pull it up on the screen for you guys. The Dominion, the information continues. The Dominion software was accessed by agents acting on behalf of China. I just read that, so I'll continue down below. I have performed forensic analysis of electronic voting systems, including the DVS Democracy Suite ES&S acquired by DVS. It lists some other software and the Smartmatic systems used in hundreds of precincts in key battleground states. I have previously discovered major exploitable vulnerabilities in DVS and ES&S that permit a nefarious operator to perform sensitive functions via its built-in covert backdoor. The backdoor enables an operator to access to perform system updates and testing via the internet without detection. However, it can also be used to conduct illicit activities such as shifting votes, deleting votes, or adding votes in real time. So that's the information from that gentleman there. There's some additional information in the lower third text. You see it scrolling across the screen. And it talks about how this gentleman works in cybersecurity and technical counterintelligence for the NSA, CIA, and FBI. So this witness holds a lot of weight, and they have a lot of credentials. So coming up next, we're getting ready to listen to this interview by General McInerney describing election fraud and voter fraud. And he also will describe the raid that took place in Frankfurt, Germany, where supposedly there was machines communicating and influencing our voting machines.
We are seeing the most unprecedented situation in the history of America. This is the most dangerous situation since the Civil War of keeping this nation united. And why do I say that? In the Civil War, it was just warfare. Today, you and General Flynn talked about cyber warfare. And cyber warfare is hidden. It's mystical. You don't see it coming. It happens. And all of a sudden, 138,000 votes or 150,000 votes, all of a sudden they show up. And because we're looking at computers, we assume they're all legitimate. But in this particular case, they are not legitimate. And because of what Sidney Powell has been doing, who was General Flynn's lawyer, and what she submitted in the state of Georgia and Michigan on Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, we got a document in those lawsuits from a Dr. Navid Kishavaretz-Nia, who is a 59-year-old resident of California who spent 40 years almost in the D.C. metropolitan area as a career intelligence community expert. I won't go into his background very much, but because of this declaration that he made, in which I am quoted and independently confirming, he uses my name, Kirk Wiebe, who is a former NSA official and a good friend of ours and working with Mary and I, and Dennis Montgomery, a former CIA analyst, who was really the creator, inventor of the hammer and scorecard capabilities. And that's what we broke. And we broke it on Sunday and Monday before the election, saying that this was going to be an action that will happen, and what transpired did in fact transpire. And Mary was very instrumental in informing me of this information, and all of a sudden, 2.5 days before the voting started on the 3rd of November, this was the 1st of November, I became involved in the voting game. My background is a military analyst. For 16 and a half years, I was on Fox News as a military analyst. I have been the number 3 man in the Air Staff and the Air Force, and so I had a great background. But what made this so easy for me, Brandon, is I run a cloud company, an edge cloud company. I am intimately familiar with this kind of technology and what it's doing, and lived by it in my military days. Everybody remembers when we attacked Tripoli in 1986, and Gaddafi. I was the commander, and they launched from my bases in England. Now, I got that information from the British and other sources, but my whole life has been based on this. And what I'm seeing now is those technologies now are used against the American people. They are trying to seize control of this nation through technology and through cyber warfare. And they have enlisted, to include Fox News, who flipped on us. They have enlisted the mainstream media and the First Amendment to try to get on their side. And General Flynn talked about the censorship, for instance, that Twitter does and determines what President Trump can say. That is ridiculous. It must stop. But because of all these assets, and they are using and misusing the Constitution of the United States, they have put us in a position that our forefathers were not aware of cyber warfare. And so when they set out in the Constitution the process of our election and going through the Electoral College, the voters meeting on 14 December, announcing who the president will be, and then going through in the 20th of November, the inauguration, that was not based upon cyber warfare. And so we have a time clock, and I bring this up to our listeners, we have a time clock, and we have to go through the legal system that was not designed to operate in the cyber world. And so we have many judges turning down and not recognizing what has happened. And so that is the challenge that we are facing. And what my point I want to get across tonight, it doesn't matter if we have locked and sealed this decision process by the 14th of December. The president should not leave office until it is adequately heard. We, the American people, will demand that these facts be analyzed and looked at. And I'm going to cover some of those facts that have made it so compelling to me that there is no question about it. And let's start with the vote count distribution in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia are not based on normal system operation. They are caused by fraudulent electronic manipulation of the targeted voting machines. For instance, at 2:30 a.m. on the 4th of November, TV broadcasts reported that Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia have decided to cease vote counting operations and will continue the following day. This unanimous decision to initially and intentionally stop counting by all 5 battleground states is highly unusual. As a matter of fact, it is unprecedented, and it demonstrates prior coordination by election officials in battleground states, those 5 states that General Flynn mentioned. And because of this big flashing light to anybody that understands the voting process, it immediately flagged this, and we start looking at each one of those states because they didn't stop counting. All of a sudden, in Michigan, at 4 o'clock in the morning, 138,000 votes show up. All for, guess who? Biden. He was behind in all those states when they decided to cease voting. And that's where they employed the cyber warfare, the hammer and scorecard, plus the Dominion voting machines and the software in them. That's where they put these applications on, like your iPhone, and they got a smooth voting. Now, when the numbers started coming back in those 5 states, they were different numbers. 138,000 in Michigan, 100,000 or 90,000 in Arizona. Now this is notional. A different one in Nevada and Georgia and Pennsylvania. But the important point was they were exactly at the same percentage. This is a mathematical impossibility that this could have happened, and it means an algorithm was used. And this algorithm was designed to stay within the bounds, and when the assembled numbers were put together, it wouldn't be obvious that these numbers of votes were inserted. And so this is a huge flashing red light. And it's important that people understand with this kind of data that we're seeing. Some more numbers that are interesting. Sydney pointed out in Georgia that there are 96,000 absentee votes that were disregarded. In Fulton County, they had a water leak. Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania mailed out 1.8 million votes to their citizens. The state did. These are not absentee ballots. These were these ballots that have no chain of custody. Lo and behold, Brandon, 2.5 million came back. Now, someone had to have a printing press, and we're cranking them out. That is just the pure sniff test that doesn't require a genius to understand. If you mail out 1.5 and 1.8 and get 2.5 million back, something is wrong. Now, Sydney and the president, through I believe General Flynn, have got the Kraken organization, the 305 Military Intelligence Battalion, working with them. Because in all of this, we have not seen any footprints of the DOJ, of the FBI, nor the CIA on the friendly side. Sydney got the term Kraken because that's the nickname of the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion. And that has been her source, along with other sources that Mary and I know about, but we don't want to talk about. And so we're getting the different sources that are relaying this. But the important thing is they identified, now get this, they identified China, Iran, and Russia as being involved in this and manipulating the votes. In addition, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Special Forces Command seized a server farm in Frankfurt, Germany, because they were sending this data from those 5 states or 6 states through the internet to Spain and then into Frankfurt, Germany. Special Operation Forces seized that facility. So they have those servers. I haven't been able to verify it. I want to be careful in that. It's just coming out. But I understand, my initial report is that there were U.S. soldiers killed in that operation. Now, that was a CIA operation. And so that's the very worrisome thing. Did that occur because of what Mary and I and Alan were notifying on the Sunday and the Monday in different networks that this was going to happen, that they were using hammer and scorecard, and so they decided to bounce it overseas So the server farms that Hammer and Scorecard were using in the continental United States couldn't be used. I don't know that. In any case, it makes it more vulnerable because when you start moving that kind of data overseas, other people look at it. And we know that not only did we have the deep state in the executive that President Trump had to fight, we also had it in the legislature where you have Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, all of those people were involved in this. They were involved in the Russian hoax. They were involved in this coup d'etat. But we also had the judiciary. And Judge Sullivan, who was General Flynn's judge, outed himself on this. And so you have the compromise there, and that's why the 305th, the Krakens, were targeted and selected, I believe, because the president could trust them. That's why Chris Miller, who is now the acting Secretary of Defense and a former Special Operations hero, that's why Chris Miller is the Secretary of Defense. This is treason, what we're talking about. Some people may just think, oh, it's just politics. Yeah, all right. So President Obama used it in 2012 to win. He and Biden used it to win Florida. So the Democrats used it during the primaries so Bernie Sanders would lose and Biden would win. You know, that's politics. You know, we've been cheating. No, it's not politics. This is treason. Benedict Arnold gave away West Point, or tried to, in the Revolutionary War. We haven't seen treason of this magnitude ever in our history. And those politicians, those people, like the head of the, Chris Krebs, who's the head of the Cyber Warfare Infrastructure Security Agency, he was, until he was fired a couple of weeks ago or more by the president because this was a perfect election. He is guilty of treason. He had to be complicit, and people must understand that. You people that have done this are guilty of treason against the United States, and we are going to demand this president, insist this president not leave office until the American people have had a full disclosure of what's going on. The president has in his oath to the Constitution to defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we shouldn't let a schedule that we know is so blatantly flawed that anybody can understand that with just the items I've given our listeners tonight. And when you have hundreds of thousands of votes that were falsified, and we know they're falsified. And by the way, I believe those servers are going to show that. And I believe that he is going to show that. It'll probably have to be done at the Supreme Court because you have judges like Sullivan and that are going to try to protect themselves because fingers are going to start pointing to everybody. You know, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. You know, they're going to use the Nuremberg trial. Well, the Fuhrer told me to do this. They're going to say, well, President Obama knew I was doing this. He told me to do it. And or Vice President Biden, or Biden was the runner here. He told me to do it. You know, they're going to point fingers. But when you have people that are driving up in cars with carloads of ballots, some not even folded, and they're driving them into these 5 or 6 battleground states, you know, they're going to talk. They don't want to be involved in treason. And so people are going to talk the magnitude of this and the vote, because I think the president won in such an overwhelming vote. Well, I know he did, that they had to do these things. And these were not, they're no skilled in the craftsmanship of what they were trying to do. They were trying to match the ballots with the numbers that they had come up with and determined were needed. And doing that in real time, you had an analog of trying to get ballots, then digital was easy. You can just change the numbers. And I won't give the chap's name, but someone, a Republican on television last night, was saying why it would be so important for the Republicans to get out in Georgia It doesn't matter how many people we get out in Georgia, Brandon. They'll just up the number. It's a digital number for them. We cannot let them use hammer and scorecard. And in my opinion, we can't have these mail-in ballots in Georgia in time. They should leave the polls open, but they must get a chain of custody. And we can't have this absolute disregard for the laws of the land and by judges and by legislatures. They must get hold of this. There is a path, but I believe that the Democrats are going to think this is politics and they're going to try to shut that down. Well, if they do, then the American people must demand that the president stay in office until this is cleared up, because it's treason, it's a coup d'etat against the government of the United States, and we cannot accept that.